morning. This is VirtualPBX dash admin training. This will be approximately an hour and a half, give or take, depending on if I misclick things and go off in random directions accidentally. If for some reason you're not able to stay with us the entire time, that's perfectly fine. We record each of these trainings each week, so you can always come back and watch them later as your schedule allows. You can also see previous versions of the trainings at any time. If you're interested in specific guides, you can go to our webpage, virtualpbx.com, mouse over support, and select dash support. And then you can scroll down. You'll see some videos already posted about specific features, as well as a recorded of this training. And then down below, you'll have individual guides for specific features, usually with screenshots and explanations. All right, and we'll go ahead and get started. So this is our dash login page, so dash, dash.virtualpbx.com. And I usually recommend people to bookmark this page, so that way they can just get there without having to navigate through the web page. But if you're on the VirtualPBX site, again, if you mouse over support, one of the links there is the dash login link. On the login page, the system is going to request your username, which is going to be an email address. Just make sure it's all in lowercase. Your password, which hopefully was emailed to you. And then lastly, your account name, typically your company name. If you signed up for a personal account, then it's probably just your name. And again, be aware of any capitalization or punctuation you may have in the company name. Now, if for some reason you didn't actually get your password in the email, it's been reported a couple of times, you can come here and just click on Forgot Your Info. It'll flip it over. Again, just put your email address in, and then we need either the company name, right, the account name, or an account phone number. And then you click on Reset Password. You'll get an email with a link that basically logs you in and then has you create a new password. It will then log you out of the account and then have you log back in with that new password. And password is case sensitive, so something to be aware of. And then for most people, I just recommend making sure you click on the Remember Me checkbox there, and that way it's one less password you actually have to remember in your life. All right, now I'm here on a test account. It's been around for a while, so there's some little quirks on this. But if it's your first time logging in, you actually get taken to a page that will look like this. So this is your general account information. Like you could change your email here and your password as well as your personal time zone. Now, because I'm a system admin, I also have this account setting section. So this is where you would change the time zone for the entire account. Now, on a live account, you have a section underneath where it says user over here for your billing information. So this is where you would update your credit card information. You can see your service plan, etc. Now, also that first time logging in, the dash wizard will pop up with the pop-up window explaining what each of these things are. Once you are done in here, just click close over here to the right. And you'll be back here on the main dashboard page. You can always get back to that same page by just clicking up here on your name. Over here to the right, you see a DND. That means do not disturb. So if I toggle this, that means I'm putting my user in do not disturb mode, meaning any calls coming to me go to voicemail. So normally I don't bother clicking on that. Then we got the little question mark icon here, and you've got these 4 sub options. So first, we got chat with us. This will open up a chat window, so you can talk to our support team, and they can walk you through whatever feature you're setting up. Next up, we've got the Learn More. This takes you to our support pages, so you can see a guide about any of the various topics and features that we have. Over here, we've got the online store. This takes you to store.virtualpbx.com. So you can buy a VoIP phone or a router or desktop soft phone application. And then up here we have the web phone. Now the web phone link only shows up once you've added a web phone to your user, and then you've logged in after you've added it, right? So you add it first, you log out, you log back in, and then it should show up here. The web phone is a kind of soft phone, right? So soft phone is a software application that uses your internet connection to make and receive calls. The web phone specifically uses Chrome and Firefox to make and receive calls. And you would simply use your Dash login to log into the web phone. Over here, we've got the hamburger or menu icon. These get you to other features of Dash. Some of these are paid features, like ACD queues are plan specific, and their pricing will vary depending on the plan you're on, as same with like reports as well. And then here we have your main dashboard. On the left, these are core features of Dash. Now, some of these are also plan specific, like auto attendance will only show up on plans. I think it's our the user plans. Like I know like the advanced plan and whatnot will have it. So if you see some features that are not on your account and you're interested in them, you're going to want to talk to our account services team about upgrading your plan. And I'll try to point those out as we go through. All right, over here in the middle, we got total users. I have 21. Oops, just took me to the user page. That's what I mean by getting sent to different places randomly. So these are staff members who make and receive calls on your account. So if you're on an unlimited user plan, right, that doesn't matter. That's not going to change your bill. However, other plans are on a per user basis, so that may increase your bill. So something to be aware of. And usually those unlimited user plans have a minute pool, right? So there's still a limitation there, just something to be aware of. Total devices. Again, I clicked too much. These are all the devices on your account that your staff members are probably using to make and receive calls. And then we have a breakdown here, right? So cell phone, that's pretty self-explanatory. The web phone, which we just talked about. Right, soft phone, this could be a third-party application. So you could use a soft phone application, say from Counterpath, another company that specializes in soft phones. You could also be, if you're using the VirtualPBX soft phone application. And it could also be because you're using those third-party credentials to program a physical VoIP phone that we don't actually support as an auto-provision device. Speaking of a VoIP phone, that's the, right here, the SIP phone. Right, so VoIP stands for Voice over Internet Protocol. SIP is a subtype of VoIP phone, right? It's a specific kind. There are multiple kinds of VoIP phones on the market in terms of how they communicate across the internet. So if you're out shopping, either virtually or in person, just make sure any VoIP phone that you may want to use with us is SIP compliant or SIP compatible. At least that way you have a chance of making it work with us. And when we get to provisioning of those phones, I'll show you the manufacturers that are currently supported. And then at least on this account, the last of the devices I have is a landline, which is pretty self-explanatory. Now down here, I have unregistered devices, total of 11. So Dash knows when VoIP devices are connected to it, and that means it knows that it can send calls to those devices or not. So in this case, it's saying, hey, 11 of your VoIP devices aren't connected, so I can't send devices or send calls to those devices. All right, down here we got total numbers, which is 52. All right, so these are customer-facing phone numbers, right? They go, and then it's broken down here. So I've got both spare numbers and assigned numbers. So an assigned number means it goes someplace, right? Someone can dial that number and they can expect to either speak to someone or at least get to a voicemail, right? That can include your fax box number, can include your conference number. It can include numbers that go directly to a specific user, or numbers that go to your green groups or ACDQs, meaning your departments, or any number of things. A spare number means it's a number on your count, but you're not using it. It doesn't ring anywhere. Now, one thing to keep in mind is on your Dash plans, you have anywhere from 2 to 15 numbers included as part of your monthly plan price. But if you go over that allotment, you're charged anywhere from $1.99 per number to, I think, $4.99 per phone number. Your spare numbers do count towards that allotment. So as you can see here, I am paying a lot for extra phone numbers on this account. So if you want to remove numbers you're not using, we'll get into that in just a little bit. Now this other breakdown, that I have here is U.S. toll-free, and U.S. DID. All right. U.S. toll-free, that's 800 number, right? 877 or 888, all the way down to 833 currently. They also work in Canada, not a big deal there. U.S. DID, that means just a U.S. local number, right? So a number in, say, Elmira, New York versus, a number, say, in, let's say, Oklahoma City, right? Or here in Las Vegas where I am at, etc. Now, if you're interested in an international number, you can have those on your Dash account. You're going to want to email our porting team, so PORTING at virtualpbx.com. They will need to know at least the city and country that you're interested in getting a phone number in. They will let you know if there's any additional requirements, i.e. Germany requires proof of presence within that city, typically just a utility bill. Some countries don't have any requirements, others are more stringent, just really depends. And they will let you know if there's any associated costs as well. Down here, we got conference bridges, which is 5. That just means I've enabled the ability to host or moderate a conference on 5 of my users. Now, I'm not able to do that until I've actually assigned a conference number, which we see over here. Oh, speaking over here to the right. So here we got our main numbers, these 4 main numbers here. These numbers all behave the same way. Right, so they're all going to route to the same location, and for instance, they would all have the same main greeting. All right. Next up, we got the conference number. This is, again, for you and your staff, as well as anyone else you are having join a conference. They all call this number, right? Whether they're within your organization or outside of it, they all call that number to join the conference. Your fax box number here, this enables faxing on your account, and this number is to receive faxes. And by default, you have just the one fax box number. The company directory, this download link downloads a simple text file that has your users and their extension numbers. Then we've got the soft phone directory. This is for use with the VirtualPBX desktop soft phone application. You download this file, and then you would upload it to the desktop app. And it basically has everyone on your account who has the desktop cell phone shows up as a contact within the VirtualPBX soft phone app. And it will also show you their status, right? So like right now, I put myself in Do Not Disturb on my cell phone to let my colleagues know, hey, I'm busy right now, don't call me, right? And they can see that on their cell phone specifically. And that's, and again, just as a caveat, that only reflects other desktop cell phone users, right? So if I have a colleague who only has a SIP phone, right, say a Yealink phone sitting on their desk, I'm not going to be able to see their status on that. That would be a limitation. All right, next up, we got the store discount code. So just for being a customer of ours, you get a discount in anything you buy through our web store. All right, that's store.virtualpbx.com. And then here we've got the account realm. The account realm is used in a couple things. One, it's one of the pieces of information you need to program or provision a soft phone application that's not from us, right? Third-party soft phone application. And that means it's also used in programming a VoIP phone that isn't on the auto provision list. And that's also used for faxing out. So on Dash, to fax out, it's an email to fax currently. You would create an email. In the to field of the email, you put the plus sign, the number 1, and then the area code and phone number that you're faxing to, the @ symbol, and then your account run. And then you simply attach a PDF or a TIFF file and hit send. Right? In the email, you don't need to type anything in the body because the system basically the email is a delivery mechanism of getting the fax file to the system. Right? The system gets the attachment and sends that out as a fax. It doesn't even look at the email in terms of any kind of content. You can only have the one attachment per email, and it does take time for the system to let you know that a fax is completed. Like the largest file I was able to fax out was 7 megabytes, and it took over an hour for me to get a notification saying that it went through or it didn't. Actually, in that case, it did. So that's something to be aware of. All right, up here at the top here, we got the company caller ID. Now, unfortunately, my streaming software doesn't always show the pull downs, but you can select any of your main numbers, right? So any of these 4 numbers can be selected. But whichever number you select, that is your overall main or default phone number for a couple of the features on your Dash account. Then down here, you've got the company caller ID name. This is, you can input up to 15 characters, including spaces and special characters. Once you click Save Changes there at the bottom right, that information gets transmitted to the other carriers who support CNAM. Now, CNAM has 2 components, right? It's got a provisioning aspect and a delivery aspect, right? So what you're doing here is the provisioning aspect, right? You're saying, hey, this is what my CNAM is going to be when I make an outbound call for my VoIP devices, right? We then send that to every carrier that supports CNAM, right? That's the provisioning aspect. That's what we can control. After that, it's the delivery aspect. That's on the receiving device end, right? So whoever you're calling, right, their carrier and all the carriers in between, right, all have to support CNAM. So like in the case of cell phone providers especially, right, the cell phone provider, they control what shows up on the cell phones that they provide service to, right? So like some places will have a phone number show up and then they say spam risk. Right, that spam risk, that's coming from the cell phone provider, not from any CNAM kind of information. So that's just one of those things to be aware of. Now, when you input that information here, it takes about 3 business days for that to get updated among the carriers. Usually it's a little faster than that, but 3 days is typically the maximum. All right, next up, we've got the company emergency address or information, 911. Again, you just want to put the physical address that is associated with this phone number. You do want to make sure this is accurate, since if someone picks up a VoIP phone and dials 911, this will be the default address that gets sent to emergency services. Obviously, if someone's calling 911, probably want them to be at the right place. Now, each of your phone numbers can have a different E911 address, and you can actually select the E911 address your VoIP devices make use of. All right, hold music. So Dash allows you to upload your own hold music. Now, hold music on Dash is defined as after a call has reached one of your users, and then the user has pressed hold on their VoIP phone, then hold music will play. Now, in terms of what you can upload, Dash will accept .mp3 and .wav files. You want to record that in mono, not in stereo, and you need to keep it under 1 megabyte in size. But then you would find the file on your computer, like that one there, for example. And then you would click the up arrow here. And after you get a progress bar, and then you would click Save Changes. Now, hours is actually part of the main number, and we'll just go over to main number to cover everything there, instead of jumping around. The main number page always takes a while to load, and that has a lot to do with the fact that it also includes the virtual receptionist. All right, so up here at the top, you got your main company numbers. Shows all your main numbers. If you decide you don't want to use one of these numbers anymore as a main number, you can click Unassign, right? So that removes it as an assigned number. Right now, it becomes a spare number. Any place you can assign a phone number to, right? You have the option is you can add from your spare number list, or you can buy a new number, right? Local or toll free. Toll free is pretty easy, right? You just pick the toll free prefix you're interested in. You click on search. It'll show you what's available, and you scroll down, and if there's more available, it will keep populating the list further. I'm actually surprised this one is here because normally things with lots of 8s get picked up pretty quick. But you find a number you like, you click add. You notice down here, it's now in my cart. It actually shows the number. I can delete it if I decide to change my mind. I can keep scrolling and look for other additional numbers if I want to. But once you're done, you just click on buy numbers. This is the system verifying the number. You know, took that number while I was looking at it. And it says, oh, it's still there. Put it on your account, and it's active. Right? Similar process for local numbers, except that for local numbers, you need to specify the area code that you're looking for. Right? So let's check with 408. That's in San Jose. Oops, only a few numbers left. Now, this is just what's available to us. You could always port a 408 number to us if you wanted to from your local carrier. But one thing to know is that, especially for the large metropolitan areas, they usually have what's called an overlay, which means it's a second area code. So for San Jose, that is 669. And you see now I have a lot more to choose from. But the same process, you just add the number to your cart, and then you would click on buy numbers. Now, over here on the right, you got a gear icon next to these numbers. So that here you can adjust the caller ID. Right, so I can put the outbound caller ID name here, and I can choose to accept inbound caller ID on these phone numbers, or this phone number. Right, here's the E911. So I'd probably put a San Jose address here, since that was a 408 number I clicked on. Prepend, this is a VoIP feature. You can add text in front of the caller ID that shows up on the VoIP phone's display, right? So it's a way to let your staff know what the call is about ahead of time, right? Especially if you have staff members taking multiple kinds of calls or for like a particular promotion. So like I could say, oh, let me type in here, I don't know if it will. Let's try that again. Right, I can add San Jose, click on Save Changes. So now when calls come in on this number and go to any of my users on their VoIP phones, it'll say San Jose as part of the caller ID, so they know, oh, this is about the San Jose promotion. All right. Next up, we got the office hour strategy. For new accounts, you start off as 24-hour open office. Many customers choose the custom office hours. And for each day of the week that you're open, you put a check mark. And then in these boxes to the right, you select your open hours in 24-hour or military time. Right, so if you don't have a check mark, that means you're closed. You can also be closed for lunch hours if you want. At the very bottom, which I don't know if this shows up on YouTube, there's a check mark saying, are you closed for lunch? So if your whole facility is closed for lunch, you can put a check mark there saying yes, and then you would include your lunch hours as part, when your lunch starts, when your lunch ends. Any changes, you would click on Save Changes. Next up, we got office holidays. So if you're closed for holidays, put a check mark up here. And then over here to the right, you would click on Add Holiday. You've got the option for single day, date range, and advanced. So single day, each one of these would create a new row, right? So then single day here, we got President's Day. You would put the date, which actually this is wrong. This was probably last year's. But you would then, so once you put the month and the date, you would click on Save Changes. Date range, like we have up here for Christmas, again, the start date, December 23rd, ending on December 26th. So basically when the system says, hey, December 23rd comes around, it puts me in holiday mode. after the 26th, puts me back in open mode. And then advanced is like here we have in retreat, where I'm saying, hey, the first Friday in July, we're on holiday. All right, so company picnic day. And for this, you have like first through fourth, I believe, as well as last. Here's your options, and then each day of the week. Main thing to be aware of here is there's no year indicator. So for things, for a date range that you want to avoid a date range that includes New Year's Eve and New Year's Day, just because there is no year indicator there. If you do that, the system puts you in after hours mode all year. All right, now we got the big kahuna. This is incoming call handling. So again, this is for the 4 main numbers, right? All the calls come in during my open hours. Here are my options. During my lunch hours, my options, my after hours, and my holidays. Now, they're all the same basic options, but you just need to pay attention to the time of day you're working with. Right, so right now, all calls coming in on my main numbers, they're going here to my virtual receptionist. This is a link. And we'll open up a window. Now on the left, this is the main menu, right? This is what people press on their phone to navigate through my phone system. Over here on my right are greetings, or my greeting options, as well as settings. All right, now, if you just signed up, you don't have any menu options. So you would click on add route here at the bottom. And then you've got this pull down here, which is essentially the default route as well as 0 through 9. And then where you're sending it. And we'll go up here, for example. Right, so you have a lot of things to choose from. One, you've got the smart directory, right? So people can enter in a person's name to find out who they're talking to or who they want to talk to. You can have it go to a specific user, right? So to ring that person. You can have it go to a call queue if you have queues on your account. You can have it go to a specific device. We don't generally recommend that because if no one picks up on that device, the call ends. You could set it up so that device's voicemail picks up, possibly, but it's not ideal. You can have it go to a media file, which is just a greeting. Again, not typically recommended just because, again, when the media file ends, the call ends by default. There is a workaround you could do for that, but that would require some advanced configuration, potentially, or making use of auto attendance. Scrolling down here, we've got ring groups, so another department option. Advanced call flows, these are additional auto attendants. So this is how you could set up sub-menuing on your account, right? So you could say, instead of all these options, you could say, hey, press 1 for English, 2 for Spanish. And in the advanced call flows, you would set these up, say, make this one English, make this one Spanish. So that way, when they click on, say, 2 for Spanish, right, they would go to a second menu, and they would hear a Spanish greeting, and then their menu options there would go to Spanish-speaking staff members, right? And then you've got the option here to go to a voicemail box, so they can leave a message. Here on the right, you have your greeting options, right? Text-to-speech, you just type in a greeting here, you would click Update, and then save changes. This is a computerized or robotic voice. If you are new to PBX systems or you're a startup company, for example, I usually suggest start up with just making use of the text-to-speech greetings until you get an idea of how you really want the calls to flow and what your options are for your customers, because you can change this A, quickly and easily, and B, it's free. You can upload your own file. Again, .wav, .mp3 files under 1 megabyte recorded in mono. You can choose from existing recordings. So if you've already uploaded files or have other text-to-speech files, you will have your complete list of media files here to choose from. Just be aware that also includes any voicemail greetings. So you could end up putting a voicemail greeting here, and it sounds like when your callers come in, it sounds like, oh, I got to a voicemail greeting. So you want to avoid that just because that can cause confusion. You have the option to record it over the phone. Now, by default, the system wants you to use a VoIP phone that you have registered on the account. right? That's what it means by a phone registered to this account. Now, to get around that, down here under settings, if you turn on, right, allow outside recording, that means you're saying, hey, it's okay for a cell phone or landline to call in to record over the phone. And then you just enter in this PIN number, and you can record over the phone. So for new signups, right, when you call in, you probably don't have a greeting in play. So you would call in, you would get a message when you connect to your main number saying a menu or greeting for this menu has not been set up yet, right? You would enter the PIN number, the system walks you through recording it over the phone. If you already have a greeting in place, right, so you've got greeting A is currently playing, you can call in, and when the greeting plays, you hit this PIN number, it will then walk you through recording a new greeting. However, it doesn't change the file name, right? It just says, hey, greeting A is here, you're calling in to record it, you're overwriting the content of greeting A with whatever you're just recording with, right? So if you want to keep greeting A, right, let's say that's your normal greeting, you would want to unassign it first, put something else in place as your greeting when you call in, and then record it. Also, this PIN number is specific to this time of day, right? So it's only going to work during my open hours. So that means to record it, I need to be in my open hours, right? And that's when that PIN will work. That would also apply to your after hours, your holidays, or your lunch hours, right? It's only going to work when your system is in that particular mode, and then that PIN will work, right? So if you called in during your lunch hours and entered in your open hours PIN, it won't work. Next up, we got professional recording services. We've partnered with another company called Snap Recordings. They have about 80 to 100 voice actors and actresses to choose from. They have different versions of English, Spanish, and French, so you can do multilingual greetings. They have what they call hold treatment, which is a mix of a music file and a script being read. They handle their own pricing and billing. They deliver typically via email, as far as I know. So then you would just upload the file via the upload your file option up here. All right. Settings, number of retries on misdial. Basically, how many times can your inbound caller enter in a wrong option or no option, right? So, right, caller comes in and they press 5, which is not set up. After that, in this case, there's no retry option. So they get to choose one time, and then the system will go to the default action. If you don't have a default action, the call will end. Right, now, dialing timeout, this is measured in seconds. Basically what it is when that person enters 5, the system waits for 1 second to see if that person enters in another digit. Right, if it doesn't hear it, it says, oh, that's it, sending it to 5, in this case, invalid option. Usually for dialing the retries, I usually say 1 or 2 is typically enough, just in case someone is dealing with a screaming child and didn't hear all the menu options. Dialing timeout also usually 1 or 2 is typically pretty sufficient. Now, allow outside recording. As I explained, that's for your main greeting to allow cell phone or landline users to record over the phone. And then now here at the bottom, allow dialing extensions. Right? So if I turn this off, that means when people call into this number, they can only enter in these main menus options. Right? If I turn it on, that inbound caller knows the extension number of the person they want to reach. They can enter it in, and they'll be connected. Now, in general, or at least with the way robodialers are, for most of the time, I say don't bother with a default route. Right? So that way, robodialer comes in, it just kind of hangs out here, listening to your greeting, and then goes to your default route, taking up minutes off of your plan. Right, so if you get rid of the default route, robodialer will still get in, they'll hear your greeting play, right, and then the call disconnects. For your actual customers, right, they'll come in, they'll hear your greeting play, and they're going to hit a menu option or an extension number because that's what most people do, and usually they'll do it quickly because they don't want to waste time. Now, any changes you make either under the main menu, the greetings, or the settings, you click Save here. And then under the incoming call handling, you also click Save Changes. and now all your changes have been saved. All right, option 2, call comes in, I'm offering it to Bob. Bob doesn't pick up, then it goes to the virtual receptionist. This is essentially giving a staff member or multiple staff members a chance to answer the call first. If they're not able to because they're busy, then the inbound caller gets their virtual receptionist so they can enter in a menu option or an extension number, right? And if you click on this virtual receptionist, you'll see it's the same setup that we were just looking at. Now, this pull down, many options, right? You have all your users. You can send it to one of your call queues. You can send it to a specific device. You can send it to a media file, and you can send it to your ring groups. One thing to be aware of, especially for these second and third options, when we're offering it to a user, a group, or a queue, the system is hard-coded so that it only offers it to them for 20 seconds. And there's not a way we can change that. All right, so option 3, call again, offer to Bob. Again, you can offer to a call queue, a device, a media file, or a ring group. They're not able to pick up, then it goes to a voicemail. This has an additional option way down at the bottom, right? Skip the voicemail, so you can just simply send callers straight to a voicemail box, right? So like for your holidays, or maybe during your lunch hours setup, or if you have an off season, like tax preparers, or actually in their busy season, but after tax season's over, they may opt to do this. The fourth option here, send callers to one of your advanced call flows. This goes to one of your other auto attendants. However, if you're going to do this on a long-term basis, it's better to make that other auto attendant your main number settings, and then whatever was on your main number, move that to being an auto attendant. So one thing to keep in mind, for your lunch hours, after hours, and holidays, they each have their own virtual receptionist. You can see here I don't have a greeting file in place. I only have it going to a default route. And then I hit save changes. Oops. All right, after hours, again, you have these same options. So you can have different options going for your different times of day or schedules, if you will. So like for this one, this is what I typically see on holidays, right? So it goes straight to voicemail. All right, main conference number. You can have multiple conference numbers if you so desire, right? You can add from spare or buy a new number. You can have a custom greeting. This is actually a text-to-speech greeting. If you enable it, you can type in what you need to. Even without a custom greeting in play, when you call this number, the system will come on and say, welcome to the conference, please enter your conference number, followed by the pound key, and then ask you for the PIN number, followed by the pound key. Main fax box number, you're allowed to have one on the account. Unfortunately, on this account, the fax box is broken. However, on your accounts, when you click on Edit Fax Box here at the bottom, this will open up a new window, or a new pop-up, with two fields. The first field is for inputting an email address for the inbound notification, right? So basically, system gets a fax, comes in, that's the email address that the system will then send the fax to, saying, hey, you got a new fax. Here's the PDF. You can look at the fax. That's also the default address that if someone, there's an unsuccessful fax, they also get a notification saying, hey, fax didn't get through. Just a note on that unsuccessful fax, that can also include someone dialing your fax box number and hearing the fax tone and hanging up. You'll get that unsuccessful fax notification for that. The second field in the fax box is for your outbound permissions. This is typically for if you own your own company's domain, right? So everyone at your company has the same email address domain, right? So Bob Smith at abccleaners.com. That abccleaners.com, you can put that in that second field, and then everyone at your company can then send a fax out, right? They have to have the correct format. They don't have to be a user on your Dash account, though, to send a fax, right? They just create an email, that +1 area code and phone number, @ in your account realm, and attach a PDF. So, you can have Danny, your intern, send faxes out, even though he doesn't have to be a user on your account. All right, so next up we have auto attendance. So this is available on specific plans. There's a couple reasons. The two major reasons you would use this is if you have multiple businesses on the same account and you want each of those businesses to have their own phone numbers and their own main greetings, right? So you've got a cleaning business, a dog walking business, and say a pizzeria, right? You want each of those to have their own phone numbers and their own main greetings because they're all very different businesses, but your same staff members can all answer calls for that, right? So that way they're all in the same account, right? In a way to, instead of having 3 different accounts and causing your bookkeeper a headache. The other reason, which I've touched on already, is for submenuing, right? So you want, English option and an English and a Spanish option, right? So 1 and 2, and then those options have their own sets of menus and greetings going down. Now, currently, accounts are limited to 10 attendants. That may grow at a later time. Anyway, to add an attendant, click here at the top. You give it a name, and then you give it an extension number. And then you would click on Create Attendant. Excuse me. Once an attendant is created, you can click on the name here. Right? You can delete the attendant at this point. You have this option here, the unavailable in main venue. This means it's a standalone attendant, right? So this likely is its own company. It has its own main greeting. But if I click on that, then I put it as available in main menu. So now it can be a submenu option as well. Here, you can assign phone numbers to a particular attendant. You can add from spare or buy new numbers. Extension, you can add more extension numbers, unassign an extension number. And if you click on the little wrench icon under settings, sorry about that. Okay. All right. So here you've got the attendant has a virtual receptionist, right? It's got the same lunch hours, after hours, and holidays as what you set up under main number. So if you have multiple businesses, but they're going to have different days of operation or hours of operation or different holidays, then you either need to have an advanced configuration set up or separate accounts. Because again, this will all follow the same hours of operation and days as your main number. Now you click on the virtual receptionist here. Again, you click on add route. You have your same text, greeting options as well as the same settings, right? So again, you can have your own greetings. They can route completely differently than under your main number. All right, devices shows your devices on the account. A green device means it's connected, meaning we can send a call to it. Red means it's not registered, so we can't send calls to it. Black means you've disabled the device. Up here, you can click Add Devices. All right, first up is SIP phone, right? So this is that physical VoIP phone, sits on someone's desk. These are the manufacturers that we support what's called auto provisioning. You would click on your manufacturer to see the models that they offer or that we offer for this. All right, you would select on the model you want to work with. You put in a name for the device, right? So it could be Bob's phone, something like that, or warehouse phone. And then we need the MAC address for that phone. Now the MAC address is unique for each phone. It's usually a sticker on the back of the phone. Can be on the box that the phone came in. Also, once you plug the phone into power, under like the menu status settings, Normally one of those is the MAC address. You would input that here, click on Create Device, and then assign that device to a specific user. Now, within the dashboard, that's it. However, you're going to want to log into the phone's web user interface, the web UI, and you need to enter in a URL in the auto provisioning section of the device. You can find that URL specifically on our guides on the support pages under auto provisioning phones. And that document has screenshots. I know right now it's got screenshots for like Yealink, Polycom, and Cisco phones. And I think we have a separate guide for Grandstream phones. And that will be updated at some point with the other manufacturers. But basically, you put that URL in, you connect the phone to the internet, and then it says goes out on the net, goes to that URL. Our server says, hey, what's your MAC address? That information change says, oh, I know who you are and what device you are. Here's your config file. Your phone will reboot usually a couple times, and then it should show up green on your device page, so then you can make and receive calls. The advantage of auto provisioning phones is that you can then make use of almost all your phone's built-in features, and just more tightly intertwined with the Dash system. All right, cell phone and landline are essentially the same. You give it a name, then you put +1 area code and phone number, and then you assign it to a person or a user, and then you click on Create Device. Now, let's go to here under Advanced. So this is the standard setup for a newly added cell phone or landline. So when Dash sends a call to a cell phone or landline, right, the phone will ring, you pick up, you're going to hear a message come up saying, this is a forwarded call, please press 1. When you press 1, you're telling the system, yes, you are there, and yes, you want to take this call. Now, in some instances, that's not what you want, right? Let's say you're making use of an automated answering service. Well, that automated answering service can't press 1, typically speaking. So then you would click here under the device's advanced settings. You click Allow Use of Cell Phone's voicemail or landline's voicemail. So now when we send the call to that device, right, it rings. We hear that pickup tone. It says, oh, call's connected. We send the caller through, right? The receiving side doesn't need to press 1. Now, if this is your actual cell phone, that means if your cell phone voicemail picks up, we still treat that like a connected call, so that inbound caller can end up on your cell phone's voicemail box. Some people love that. Some people don't want that at all. All right. Next up, we've got the Keep Original Caller ID. So let's say customer Mary is calling you, gets to your cell phone. You see on your cell phone's display, you see Mary's phone number. You don't recognize it. You're like, nope, I don't want to take this call. All right, let it go to voicemail. So then you can check your voicemail, check it, and then maybe you're able to call Mary and help her, or maybe she's like, oh, I just moved on to whatever other business, one of your competitors. So if instead you uncheck this, right, when customer Mary calls, what shows up on your cell phone is your main company number, right? And what I mean by the main company number, if we go back to the dashboard, the one that we have selected here under company caller ID, right? This is your default main number. That's what would show up on your cell phone's display. So it's a way to let you know, oh, this is a work call that's coming in. All right, soft phone. First, you got this little warning message about wireless technology saying, hey, you could be at a different location than what your E911 is set, so please be aware of that. And once you click close, you get this page. Now, this is set up by default to use a third-party application, meaning you're using a soft phone from another company, or your VoIP phone didn't show up on that auto provision list, so you're going to try to program it using these credentials. So you give it a name. You're going to copy and paste the SIP username, and if you click on the SIP password, you'll see the SIP password, then you'll copy and paste that, and then you'll need the account realm. And those three pieces of information are what you're going to need to program that other application or VoIP phone. We do have a couple guides on how to do that on our support pages. We don't have guides for every soft phone or VoIP phone out there. There's just too many. So I bet for some people that might just be a mere guideline, and they'll have to figure it out. Now, if you want to use the VirtualPBX soft phone application, you notice right here under where it says Account Realm, just below that it says Use Third-Party Application. If you click on it where it says Use Third-Party Application, it flips that to say Use VirtualPBX Application. So you give it a device name, and you would assign it to an owner, and then you click on Create Device. When you do that, that person, right, your staff member, gets an email saying, your cell phone has been created. Here's your username and here's your passwords. If they're going to be using it on an Android phone or iPhone, they can go to the relevant app store and look up VPBX phone, download the app, and get logged in. They're good to go. If you want to use the desktop application, then you do need to order that through the web store, store.virtualpbx.com. There is a license fee associated with the desktop app. I think it's list price is $39.99. If it's on, sometimes it's on sale. And then you'll get a download link for Windows and Mac OS. You can download it and then use those credentials to log in. Oh, and then web phone. Again, you get that wireless message. You give it a name. You assign it to a person. You click on Create Device. They're not going to get an email. At that point, they can go to webphone.virtualpbx.net in either Chrome or Firefox. It will ask them to log in. That login information is their dash login, right? So same email, same password, same account realm. And then they can use Chrome and Firefox to make and receive calls. All right. Next up, we've got the Greetings Manager. Shows your greetings on your account. Has the name. The source, TTS, is text-to-speech. Upload means you uploaded the file. Recording means you recorded over the phone. You can download the file. This will allow you to listen to it to make sure it's still relevant to your business. And if you click on the little wrench icon, you can change the name as well as delete the greeting. You can add greetings up here. All right, you give it a name. You find the file on your computer. And then you click on Create Greeting. It will upload the file and show up in this list. All right, next up, we've got groups, shorthand for ring groups. These are for departments. There's no additional fees for ring groups themselves. If you add phone numbers, that might incur a fee. And to add a group, you click Add Group here at the top. You give it a name and an extension number. And then you click and drag the staff members that are part of this department. Right? And then you click on Create Group. Once a group's created, you can click on the name. All right. Sorry about that. So you can always change the name, and then you've got the group call attempts, right? So right now, default 1, you have a little up arrow and down arrow. So you can change the number of attempts. This is basically how many times that inbound caller can ring through to the group members. If you click on the members box, you can see how the calls are going to route. Up here along the top, you've got these are timestamps. Right here is your overall ring time in the group. So by default, a new group starts at 120 seconds, so 2 minutes. Now you can click distribute, so that will distribute the call among your staff members equally and in order. Now if you don't like this order, right, you can click and drag people around and then click distribute again. So now it's in this order. These are sliders, right? So as you saw earlier, you can do things like this. Right, this is referred to as blast ringing, so everyone gets rung at the same time. So a couple of things. For groups, say call comes in and Kathy answers the first call. While she's on that call, if a second call comes in, she will hear a call waiting beep on her side until one of her colleagues here picks up that call. Right, and these are the only real routing options you have, right? Like you can go in order, you can go on blast ringing, or you can monkey around with having like some overlap, right? Something like that. If you need to remove a staff member, you would click on the remove button here. If you need to add more people, you would click on add user. Right, and once you're in a group, you're in a group. You don't have a way to mark yourself away or to log out of a group. Groups can have an extension number, right? Because you needed to create, add an extension when you first created it, but you can have multiple. They can also have their own phone number, meaning they can dial a phone number and go directly into a group, right? Versus going through the virtual receptionist. And then we've got some group features. Right, so ringback, this is hold music for a group. You click on enabled, you can upload a file, right, .wav, .mp3, recorded in mono. You want to make sure this file, that the duration of this file equals the duration of your ring time in the group, right? So that default here, 120 seconds, I need to make sure that file that I upload is at least 120 seconds long because the system will not loop it for me. All right, next action, if you enable this, if no one answers, where do you want the call to go to? You can send it back to your main virtual receptionist. You can send it to one of your other auto attendants. You can send it to a call queue. You can send it to a specific device. You can send it to another ring group. You can send it to a specific user or a voicemail box. Allow call forward. If you enable this, you're allowing your users to make use of call forwarding, i.e. they're not going to be at their normal phone that they use day to day, and they forwarded the calls to, say, their cell phone. So that means they can still pick up group calls from their cell phone if that isn't already a device on their user. Caller ID prepend, if enabled, this is again for your VoIP phone users. You can add additional caller ID in front of additional text or numbers in front of the caller ID that shows up on their VoIP phones. Right, so useful if they're in multiple groups so they know what the call might be about. Right, numbers, this goes to your numbers manager. So numbers in use, basically the numbers that you have assigned and where they're going. And then spare numbers, numbers you're not using. Now, if you have several numbers you're not using and you don't intend to use them ever again, you can click on the little box in front, and now you see I have an option here to delete. So let's get rid of a couple numbers here. And then you would click on delete here. So are you sure you want to delete all these numbers? You would click yes or delete numbers. Let you know, yes, all these numbers have been removed, and you see the number list is now shorter, so I just saved a little money on my account. You can always buy numbers here, right? You got local and toll-free, and this would just add any number right here into the spare number list. You can port a number. So port means you're moving a number from another carrier to VirtualPBX, or if you're porting out, that'd be from VirtualPBX to another carrier. You would click on new port request. You would give it a name. and select US local or toll free. You would click on next, and then ask you to upload a copy of your bill. As you go forward, it's also going to let you download a blank letter of agency or LOA, and then as well as upload a completed and signed letter of agency. On the letter of agency, they ask you for company information, right? So like your company name and address. That information should match what the current carrier has on file for you. So for instance, if you are porting from Comcast to VirtualPBX, then for the company name or a person's name, right, it's whatever Comcast has on file for that phone number, as well as the address. It does need to be signed, could be digitally signed, right? You don't necessarily have to print it out and physically sign it, but it simply can't have that person's name typed twice, right? It asks for an authorization name and then that person's signature. You can't just put in Bob Smith, type Bob Smith twice. It needs to be typed in once and then an actual signature or signature file put there. Now, once you upload the files, it'll ask you to submit it, and you'll get an email, an automated email saying, hey, you've successfully submitted your port request. Usually by the next business day, you will get another email from our porting team saying, yes, we've got your documents, and yes, we submitted it. Here's what to expect about the porting process. Right? That second email lets you know for sure that all your paperwork got through and your port's in process. Now, if for some reason you got an error when you're trying to submit the documents or upload them, you can always email the porting team, right? porting@virtualpbx.com. You can attach your LOA and your bill copy, and they can still process the port that way. Typically speaking, porting a toll-free number takes about 3 to 5 business days if everything is correct. A local number can be anywhere from the next business day up to a couple of weeks if everything's correct. So like a Google Voice number, if you've already unlocked the number and you submit the documents to us, I have seen that port the next business day. But usually it's a couple of weeks. Also keep in mind when you're porting a number, you need to have active accounts on both sides of the port, right? So your account with Comcast needs to be active and open. Your account with VirtualPBX needs to be active and open until that port completes. Once it's complete, right, so you're porting to us, we'll let you know, saying, hey, your port has completed. We've already tested the number. Right, we put it on your account. We made a test call in to make sure it's working properly. That's when we email you. At that point, if you don't have any other need of services from Comcast, for example, you could then cancel your account with Comcast. But you want to make sure you get that notification from the winning carrier saying, hey, we got the number. Then you can initiate a cancellation request. All right, users, all your users on your account. A little gray person icon is your standard user. The person with the blue suit is a system admin. If you need to add someone, you click Add User. Brings up a little form. You enter their first and last name. The email address used for login needs to be unique for each user, right? So Bob and Mary can't have, you can't have a user, Bob and Mary both use support@virtualpbx.com, right? That's only going to be good for one of them. Now you can make the other person support one at virtualpbx.com, right? And they can use that to log in with. Right? You create a password for them. The system will default to creating a voicemail box for them. Extension number. You can enter in the extension number for them. The system, right? On this system, I started with extension 1000. It's saying extension 1005 is available for use. I can change this, right? I can make it, 4210 if I wanted to. All right, include in the user directory or the company directory, right? You can change this at any time. Send emails to an alternate address. So you can put a different email address here. This will supersede the email address used for login when it comes to sending out like voicemail messages, the password reset, the soft phone credentials, right? So if you put Bob's personal email address versus support1@virtualpbx.com, so that way he'll get his emails at his personal email address or his voicemails, as well as like the soft phone, etc. And then send credentials to the user. I usually recommend checking that. If you only needed to create the one user, then you just click on Create User. If you need to add multiple people, create user and add another. once a user is created, you can click on their name. You can change their name. Second option here is change credentials, right? So you can change their email address or their password. You also have the option here to send them the password reset email yourself. So let's say you know, for example, that you and Bob are on different wavelengths when it comes to passwords. He never remembers any password you create for him. You're like, here, I created your user. I didn't send the credentials to you right away because I'm going to click this, and you can create your own password. Change PIN. This is the voicemail box PIN. If your staff members are all going to use VoIP phones, you don't actually have to set up a PIN number for them. From their VoIP phone, they can hit *98. That automatically logs them into that voicemail box that was created at the same time as the user. The first time they do that, the system will then prompt them to enter in a PIN number, right, to create a PIN number for their voicemail box, and then to record their voicemail box greeting. For your cell phone and landline users, you do need to create a PIN number for them. Here's the option to send to an alternate address. Right, just put a check mark and enter in the address, as well as the company directory. Over here is the pull down to make a user into an admin, or vice versa. This is the time zone for the user. This is the display language. It's English, French, German, and Russian. Right, so just what displays within your web browser. Ringing timeout. This is how much time the system will default to send calls to a user and their devices. So if a user is using VoIP phones, 20 seconds is typically fine, which is the system default. If your user is using cell phones, then you're going to want to make it 45 seconds, if not a minute. Just as an explanation, in terms of how calls route from a PBX system to devices, right? So call comes in, sending it to Bob. If Bob has a landline, right, we send the call out to the landline telecom company. They go, oh, we know exactly where that phone is. Boom, right? Call goes to that device. Whereas call comes in, it's going to a cell phone. We send it to the cell phone provider. They say, hold on a second. We need to find them first, right? So they ping all the cell phone towers. Say, all right, we found them. Then the call gets routed to that cell phone. Is that delay in trying to find you is why you might need a longer ring timeout for calls going to a cell phone versus, say, a landline. And then you've got your main extension, which would be your default extension number. Speaking of extensions, users can have multiple extensions if you want them to. Right, users can have their own phone numbers. This would, again, go directly to this user. They don't have to go through the virtual receptionist. Right? You can add from spare, right? Or you can buy numbers, local or toll free. Then we got the devices box. So this shows your devices on the account. You can add from spare devices if you have extra devices or you've been unassigning devices, or you can add a new device, right? You've got the same options here. I personally find it easier to add the web phone and the VirtualPBX soft phone here on the users page, right? You would, after you click on create device, you click on save changes and they're good to go. Next up, we've got the user features. So caller ID number, this only works for users that have their own phone number. And when you turn it on, this becomes their outbound caller ID, right? This is what shows up when they make an outbound call. Call forwarding. You've got off, on, and failover mode. Off means you're not using it. On means you are. And then failover is for your VoIP phone users. So this is a feature that your users can actually enable on their own. It's not something you have to do for them. They can either do that through the user portal or they can do it on their VoIP phone directly. But once it's on, they select either a mobile or desk phone. They put +1 area code and phone number, and they have these options. And then they click on Save Changes. So what this means is this phone number here should not be a device on my user, right? I'm only using this temporarily. On my day-to-day operations, I'm using a different phone, right? And so on failover mode, this means, hey, the system detected that my VoIP phone went offline, and a call happens to be coming to my user at that time, it will automatically send it to, in this case, my cell phone, right? So then I can still take the work call on my cell phone, handle the customer, or make the sale, what have you, and then I can say what happened to my VoIP phone, right? Did I lose internet connection, or what? Oh, and so I should point out the reason you don't need it should not be a device on your user. If you already have it, like if you already have your cell phone as a device, the system's already going to offer it to that device. You don't need to forward it. You basically cause a loop within the system. Hot desking is a VoIP feature. This is for use in a office environment where you might be switching desks from day to day or shift to shift, however you want to term it. But you create a hot desk ID, usually 4 digits. Up to you if you want to require a PIN number. But basically say, today's Tuesday, I came into the office, I sat down at desk number 7. I pick up the VoIP phone there, I hit *11, that turns on hot desking on that phone. It then asks me for my hot desk ID, I enter that, and then it tells me calls will be sent to this device. So for the rest of my workday, anyone trying to reach me at my user, right, or my ring groups that I'm in or whatever, it's going to ring at that phone I'm sitting at. The end of my day, I hit *12, that turns off hot desking, so that way it's not ringing for me after I'm already gone. Next time I come into the office, say it's Friday, I come in, someone's already sitting at desk number 7, I'm like, whatever, here's desk 23. I sit down, I do the same thing, right? Pick up the phone, hit *11, enter my hot desk ID, I take my calls at that phone. Voicemail box was created when the user was created. Fax box. So you can have your users have their own individual fax boxes. And you can select a new number, a spare number, or you can add an extension. Now, if you assign an extension, right, that avoids the need of an extra phone number, you just need to find an available extension on the account. Once you find one that isn't already being used, you enter it in this box, and then you click on Select Extension. The downside of that is then you're relying on the person who's faxing in to be able to, from their fax machine, right, dial your main number, wait for the greeting to start, then enter the fax extension, and then hit Send Fax. Right? Some fax machines, they may not be able to do that, or they may not be able to easily hear the greeting so that they know when to enter the extension number. Or if they're using an email to fax service or electronic fax service, they may not have that option to enter in an extension. Right? They can only send it to a phone number. So that's why normally I recommend for most people just to use a phone number if they want an individual to have their own fax box. Conferencing or conference bridge. If you enable it, that means this user can moderate or host a conference. Tells you the conference number as well as the conference room number. And then as an admin, you just need to create a PIN number for them and then click on Save Changes. The user can change the PIN number themselves via the user portal. So it's essentially a temporary one. They can change it at any time. All right, follow me. This is for users with multiple devices. If you click Enabled, this is how it starts. Now you have to decide which phones you're actually going to make use of, and you uncheck the ones you want to use. Up here is the total ring time. It defaults to 120, and you can click Distribute. Right, I can change the order around, and click Distribute again. Just like in the ring groups, right? You can change the order. You can adjust the sliders, however you see fit. Music on hold. You can have your users have their own hold music. You just click on Enabled, excuse me. Upload the file, right? .wav.mp3 recorded in mono under 1 megabyte. Click the upload icon, and then click Save Changes after it finishes uploading. Customized call recording. So when you first enable it, it actually looks like this, right? So then you need to decide which of these types of calls you're going to record, right? Inbound internal means coworker Bob called me, right? Inbound external means customer Mary called me, right? Outbound internal means I called coworker Bob. Outbound external means I called customer Mary. And then you click on Save Changes. Right, and do not disturb. I can put myself, or you can put a user in do not disturb, meaning calls that go to them will go to voicemail. All right, voicemail boxes. So these shows your voicemail boxes on the account. Your user voicemail boxes also show up here, right? And you can click on the little wrench icon, and they'll have the same options as these other ones. These ones that don't have a user, these are ones that you create yourself, right? So this is what you would create for like your ring groups or your ACD queues. You enter in a name, a voicemail box number, and a PIN number, and then you would click on Create New Voicemail Box. Once you've created a new voicemail box, or on any voicemail box, you can click Advanced, go to Greeting and Media. You can upload a file, right, for their standard voicemail greeting, .wav, .mp3, recorded in mono under 1 megabyte. You can also record it over the phone, right? That's call into your main number, hit *97 on the phone, and then it'll ask you for the voicemail box number and then the PIN number, and then you can record a greeting over the phone. Now this temporary file, this you can have in place for like when someone's on vacation, right? So like the vacation voicemail greeting. So when you have a file selected in temporary, it supersedes the media file until you put temporary back to none. Right. Then, especially for a manually created voicemail box like this, you would want to add a recipient. Right. We just click there and enter this email address in. For your user voicemail boxes, they already have a recipient built in. Right. That email address used for login, that's the recipient for any voicemails that come to that voicemail box. And then the options. So you've already uploaded a greeting and you've added recipients. You can then click Already Set Up, right? So that way it's ready, it's good to go. Some other options that tend to come up are these two down here towards the bottom. So by default, when a voicemail box is left, or a voicemail is left in a voicemail box, the system will email a recipient, whether it's the user or anyone you add in the recipient's field. And then it attaches a MP3 file to that email saying, hey, you have voicemail, and here's what the message that was left, right? So you can double click on it on your computer and listen to it. Now, after that email gets sent, by default, the system will then delete that voicemail from the system, because the voicemail boxes can only hold up to 100 messages, right? Once you get to 100, and someone tries to leave a message, they get that message saying, voicemail box is full, please try again later. So then as an admin, you'd have to go in, or the staff member would have to go in and delete their messages so that people can then leave messages for them again. Now, if your staff is good about logging in either over their phone or through the portal, user portal, to check their messages, then you can uncheck delete after notifications. And if you want to make them actually do so, then you can also uncheck attach messages to email, right? So that way they just get an email saying, hey, you have a voicemail, but then they have to log in either through the user portal or over their phone to actually listen to the message and then delete the message. All right, advanced routing. This will only show up on specific plans. It does take longer to load than I like, but that's because I'm impatient. All right, so direct inward system access, or DISA. If you enable this, this will allow your cell phone and landline users to call into your main number, log in over the phone essentially, and then make an outbound call. And when they make that outbound call, the caller ID that shows up is not their cell phone number, but rather your main company number, right? So under that dashboard, the caller ID. So if you want to enable this, you click on it, you click enable. Right, there's your PIN number, edit settings. I also recommend adding an extension number to it and save changes. So now call into your main number from your cell phone. You enter in this extension number. The system will prompt you for this PIN number. You'll then hear dial tone. You enter area code and phone number. Then you're ringing, and then you connect. Again, the caller ID that shows up is this default number right here. Now, for most accounts, you can ask to have this enabled. It's not going to show up by default just because this can be a fraud vector, I guess is the term. Essentially, if someone figures out the PIN number and the extension number, right, they can then call into your system and make outbound calls on your account, and you may not notice it right away. Right, and part of the reason I say add the extension number is that that's two pieces of information they have to figure out versus just randomly putting in PIN numbers to try to figure it out. All right, call logs shows your call history on your account. If we close in this month, we get more calls. So green arrow to the right means that's an inbound call. If you click on it, you get some more information. You can see that it was the devices it was offered to and for how long. You have a little fire hydrant icon here, which allows you to report a call. This will create an email using your default email application. It's going to have the technical details of the call. I do recommend, if you make use of that, to type in the body of that email what you experienced or didn't experience. So like you say, hey, here's this call. It said it was offered to my phone, but my phone number rang. And so like we would take a look at it and say, well, it offered it for 1 second. That's usually means someone else picked up or the person called in hung up. Right, in this instance, this is the person got to your virtual receptionist and then hung up. They didn't press a menu option or an extension number. Normal clearing is typically what you want to see because that just means the call ended normally, like nothing unexpected happened. Oh, oops. One thing else you can do is you can set your own custom start and end dates, and then you can download the file. You can even download it under like this month, right? It's a CSV file, so you can take a look at what your calls are like. Feature codes. I've already mentioned a couple of these already, like the *11 and the *12. Down here are the voicemail ones I've mentioned. These are also available on our website under the support pages, so you can look them up without having to log into your system. So that's it for the dashboard. So let's go over to ACD queues. ACD stands for Automatic Call Distribution. It's a call center feature. These are essentially more advanced version of ring groups, right? Ring groups, you only have a couple routing options, whereas the queues have more advanced options. So you would start by clicking on Add New Queue. I'm just going to click on this existing queue. So you give it a name, and then you have the option of adding a phone number or an extension number, right? A group could have both. A queue can have one or the other. One thing to keep in mind with queues is that in terms of receiving calls, you can only receive calls with a VoIP phone currently, right? So soft phone, web phone, or SIP phone, right? You have to make use of those to answer calls in a queue. In a ring group, you can answer calls with the VoIP devices, but you can also make use of a cell phone or a landline. So in that regard, it might be easier to use a ring group. Now, back to queues, configuration, the queue routing strategy. Unfortunately, the pull down isn't showing, but this is showing up on most idle. That means of my agents who are logged in, Whoever's been waiting the longest for a call gets the next call that comes in. You also have ring all, meaning everyone gets rung until someone picks up. You have round robin, which will equalize the call distribution among your staff members over time. You have least offered. This is least number of offered calls. So if Bob and Mary are logged into my queue, if Bob's been offered 20 calls and Mary's been offered 5 calls, under least offered, when the next call comes in, it's going to go to Mary, right? Because she's only been offered 5 calls. And then the last routing option is least calls. That means least amount of connected calls. So in that 20 and 5 scenario with Bob and Mary, Bob's been offered 20 calls, but he's only talked to 2 people, right? So he's connected twice. Mary's been offered 5 calls, but she's spoken to all 5, right? 5 connected calls. The next call that comes in goes to Bob until he equalizes with Mary, or unless someone else logs in, right? If someone else logs in, they have 0, so they would get the next call. All right, hold treatment, kind of cut off there. You've got default music. You can upload .wav, .mp3, recorded in mono. There's also ACD Queues Pro. I should mention that as well. It's basically a more advanced version of queues. The hold treatment in ACD Queues Pros is more advanced or more customizable. You can add things like the expected wait time, their position in line, as well as multiple media files, right? So you can say, you know, call enters the queue, gets announced their wait time, and then you can have a media file play, right? After however long that media file is, then it says, you know, your position in line. Then you can have a different media file play, or the same media file play again, up to you, that sort of thing. Queue timeout, this is how much time the inbound caller can wait on hold, measured in seconds. The queue call limit, this is how many people can be waiting on hold on top of calls that are already speaking to agents, right? So Bob and Mary are both on calls. I can have 4 additional people waiting on hold. If you set this to 0, that means you're saying there's no limit to the number of calls that can be in the queue. Timeout immediately if empty. If this is enabled, that means if I have no staff members logged in and a call comes into that queue, the system will treat it as if that caller has hit this 3,600 second timer already. Escalation queue, if you select it to go to a second queue, what basically means my staff members are busy, a call comes in, I'm going to send it to the second queue, so that way they have a chance to speak to somebody. And then the escalation call flow after timeout. So after this 3,600 seconds is reached, where am I sending them? In this case, I'm sending them to the main voicemail box, but you have all sorts of options, right? You can send it nowhere, meaning the call ends. You can send it to one of your other attendants. You can send it to a specific phone or device. You can send it back to the smart directory. You can send it to one of your ring groups. You can send it to a media file, which again, after that file plays, call ends. You can send it to a specific user and a user voicemail box. Now, so if say a call comes in, my staff members are all busy, right? And so the caller goes to the escalation queue. Since that call started in this queue, this timeout is still counting. Once it reaches, it pulls the call back from the escalation queue and sends it to the timeout call flow. All right, agent behavior, agent recovery timeout measured in seconds. Basically, after an agent is done with a call, the system will wait, in this case, 30 seconds before it offers them another call from this queue. Force away on rejected or missed. If this is enabled, means if one of my staff members misses a call, then the system puts them in away mode, and that user then has to mark themselves ready before they're offered another call again. And then agent connect timeout is 20, which is, again, plenty of time, since in a queue, they can only take calls from a VoIP device. All right, over here, this is the members icon. All right, so this is the list of people who are available to be in any of my queues. I click on Manage Members. All right, so I got that same list here, and then on the left, these are other staff members who are not yet in queues, right? So I can click on their name, and I can move them over. will reload. You notice Peter is no longer there, and now he's down there. Likewise, I can click on several people here, and I can remove them from the queues. And that removes them from being in any of the queues. They simply just don't have access to ACD queues, period. All right, so we'll click back to the queues. Now, if you click on a queue itself, you can add agents, right? And again, you can have any of the available members. You can click and drag them to be in the queue. Once you've added agents, you can then make any of those agents a manager for that specific queue. Right, you click and drag. Likewise, you can say, oh, right, now for your staff members, right, they would still click on ACD queues, and then they would click on begin session. So now you see I'm here, I'm logged in, but I'm red, right? Meaning I'm marked away, right? So I'm away up here. I can then mark myself as ready. So now I'm actually in 2 queues because you can see I'm down here, that one. But I'm now ready in 2 queues, meaning a call comes in, I'll be offered the call. Now this little phone icon here, this allows me to select a specific device I'm going to take a call on. You do want to pick one device as your default, and again, it needs to be a VoIP device. And then you can click that. Some other things about the ACD Queues Pro is they have a other option here for performance. So you can have 2 rows compare like 2 agents in terms of like their call volume, etc. Also, ACD Queues Pro has the ability for managers to eavesdrop on a call, whisper to their staff member, right, to give them pointers, as well as barge into a call to take over the call if necessary. So again, if you're interested in queues, you probably want to talk to our account services team just to make sure what it would cost for your plan or if you need to change plans. All right, next up, we got blacklists. Blacklist allows you to create a list of caller ID that you don't want to connect to your system, right? You're blocking calls from reaching your system. So you click on blacklist, then you would click on edit blacklist. Now, if you don't have a list, you would just click on add. Otherwise, you can click on an existing list. Right? You would give it a name. Block anonymous, that means if you turn this on, if we don't get a valid inbound caller ID, the system will block that call. Right? They get a busy tone. And then otherwise, you add a number. You put +1 area code and phone number. No dashes. You just click add, and then you would click on save. You go back to settings, and then you make sure your active lists are over here on the right under selected. Right, so these lists are active. You would just click update. So now any phone number on these 2 lists that they try to call any of my phone numbers, they get a busy tone. Right? They're not connecting. Whether it's because it's a robodialer that keeps calling you from the same phone number, or it's some kid playing around on the phone, or some obnoxious person who just has nothing better to do with their time. The dynamic caller ID, this is again available on specific plans. This allows you to create your own feature codes, for example, and to change your caller ID on your outbound calls. So you would click on create a new rule. You give it a name. You choose a caller ID display on your account, so one of your phone numbers on the account, and then you enter in a feature code, right? Star and then some sort of digits. You can also have it when an area code matches. Right, so whatever area code you're dialing, you say, I want it to match this one. So say, actually here, Kind of annoying that a pull down isn't working here, but I can say and then I can change that to use this. So now what I'm saying is whenever I dial a 408 phone number, I want the caller ID to be displayed as this 408 phone number whenever I make an outbound call, right? So if I click at this one here, what I'm saying here is when I hit *71, then I dial a phone number. The area code that shows up, or the phone number that shows up on the caller ID is this 702 phone number. All right, the fax manager. Basically, as an admin, you can get to any fax box on the account and see the status of any faxes. As well as their outbound faxes. Right, you can see I have a failed outbound fax here. You can also go to your email to fax logs. You can see who tried to send a fax out, where they went to, or the phone number they went to, the date, the time. If you click on the little eyeball icon here, you'll see the reasons why. In this case, this email address is not on the account, right? So they're not allowed to fax out. The monitor, this is again a plan-specific feature. Allows you to see the status of your staff members. Green means they're waiting for a call. Blue means they're on an inbound call. Red means they've marked away. Yellow means they're on an outbound or external call. Gold means they're on recovery time from a queue call. Right, you've got, say, who's available and who's busy. Number manager, again, shows you your numbers. In this case, it starts you off with your spare numbers. The recording manager, that takes you to the recording storage, which is just recordings.virtualpbx.com. That uses your Dash login to log into it, and then you can view your recordings as well as listen to them, download them, or delete them. Reports is in beta. This is advanced reporting, and it basically allows you to create your own reports and get a better idea of what's going on with calls that are coming in and out of your system. If that's something you're interested in, you do need to talk to our account services team to see about adding that to your plan or changing your plan. Voicemails, this takes you to the voicemail manager. You can go to any voicemail box in the account to see their messages. Now, this will only display if the user has delete after notification turned off. But then you can say, hey, they got a new message. This is the date. This is the phone number that it came from. This is the phone number it was going to, the duration. You've got the option to play it, download it. If you click on the checkbox, then you can mark it as new, deleted, etc. You can also move it to a different user, right? So, oh, this is in the wrong box. Let me move it to this other staff member. Webhooks, this is essentially making use of APIs to link Dash to other software. If you're interested in that, you do need to talk to our sales team. They have some qualifying info as well as some white paper documentation. You can also go to developer.virtualpbx.com to see some samples of what we have done with APIs and Dash ourselves. And then lastly, we've got the user portal. So every user on your account has their own user portal. Even as an admin, you can't get to other staff members' user portals, but for the most part, you can get to anything of theirs without doing so. But again, as a user, I can see my voicemail, where it came from. I have the option to play it back, to download it, right? If I click on the box here, then I can say, hey, mark it as new, listen, or as deleted, as well as change the sort order if I have a lot of voicemails. That's call history, so I can see calls that came into me or I made outbound. I can also change the date range. Faxes, I would see any faxes I have, but I don't have a fax box. The contact list, this is everything within your Dash account, right? So all your users, your groups, your queues, your auto attendance, etc. This is not something that a user can add themselves, right? So your salespeople wouldn't be able to add their client list to this contact list. This is only within your Dash account. The conference tab, once it loads, this is where your staff members can adjust their own PIN numbers. Over here, they can say what people come in muted or they come in deafened, as well as play entry and exit tones. Here, you can invite another Dash user on this account into a conference. Then you get the lock conference, mute everybody, unmute everybody, or end the call. Once you're in a conference, you can actually mute a specific participant or unmute them, as well as kick a participant out. And then under settings and devices, this is where a user would set up their own call forwarding. Right, just put a check mark. This is where I'm forwarding it to, as well as other options, and they can see the status of their devices. If they make any changes, they do need to hit save. And that is everything. So let's go back to the dashboard here. All right, I'm going to hang out for a couple minutes here to see if anyone has any questions via chat. I haven't seen any pop up yet, but or at least today. Yeah. If you don't have any questions, then I thank you for your time today. But as I said, I'll wait a few minutes here in case someone does. All right, not seeing any chats come through or any questions, so I'm going to go ahead and end the stream. Thank you for your time today, and I hope you have a wonderful day. We will be back next Tuesday at 10 a.m. Pacific.